Testing, testing. Well, hi, everyone. Welcome to the first meeting of the new panel for the advisory design panel with a bunch of new faces today that we're happy to see. Wanted to remind everybody to use your mics, and we are going to have somebody joining in on Zoom, and it probably is going to really require the mic to be heard by her. So that would be great. And I'd like to call the meeting to order, and this is concerning 187 Bagshaw Street. And before we get into that, we need to adopt the minutes of our previous meeting, which was September 22nd of 2022. And I don't think anybody here except myself was here for that meeting. But I'm going to ask you to be very kind and move and second those minutes for us, if you would. Thank you, Bruce. And if everybody could just do their name again, because we are a new panel here, it would be helpful. So, Kate, yeah. Okay, so with that, we're going to have a presentation on 187 Bagshaw. And is that going to be you, Glenn, or one of you up there? Okay.
Hi there, my name's Glenn Hill. I'm from DHK Architects, and I'm the architect for this project. I'd also like to take a moment to let Bill introduce himself. He is the owner-developer. So Bill, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi folks, my name is Bill Vanstein. I've lived in the Parksville area since 1977, so I've seen it grow and change. We've also, myself and my team, been on the construction end of a few projects in Parksville. So if anybody ever feels the want to just to drive by and see what we've done as far as finishes and how our properties look, we designed and built the building across from the Bayside Inn called the Bayside Manor on Dogwood Street. And I was the construction manager and main partner with Ratcliffe. And my team built that building across from the McDonald's on Lombardy Street, 100 Lombardy. You've probably seen some commercial stuff there, and they were condos upstairs. This building is designed along the same motive where we want to show something that's high-end, fits into the city, and is also very functional at the same time. So I'll let Glenn do his presentation, and then I'm also willing to accept any questions after he's done to help out. So here's Glenn. Thank you.
Our landscape architect can't be with us today. They are, well, depending on what WestJet's up to, they're either going on holiday or staying right here. So, I have some notes from the landscape architect, so I will just sort of read through those whenever we get to that point in the presentation. So yeah, we've been working hard on this project over the last several months. There was a sort of a previous scheme that was approved, and but we have come full circle on a new design for this site in a similar vein, and with the same attention to detail and architecture as Bill explained. That is the kind of the way that he wants to develop his project. So we've got a pretty exciting project to share with you today. So we'll just go now. If I can go to the presentation, Sarah, able to? Is that it? And is it possible to bring the lights down just a little bit so we can maybe see a bit better? Well, we can turn it off, or not. I don't know. All right, so this is our project. It's we got some view challenges here, Sarah? Or possible to view each page separately? It looks like it's. It's a PDF, yeah. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, this is the Microsoft. Okay, so I'll just scroll. Is that sizing? That one's still small.
That's okay. We'll not worry about that. All right, and then. Okay. All right. You know, the usual teething, right? This one, I believe you have copies of this, but essentially this is this page. I don't know why it's so small, but it's just giving us our location. We're right on the edge of the C3 zone, and we've got sort of a commercial mixed use within that development permit area. And so in the commercial mixed use DPA area, we're preserving. The emphasis is on preserving existing views and emphasize on frontages with respect to massing materials and details, to articulate facades to avoid large expanses of any one material, and to orientate and reduce shadow impact on neighbors, considering incorporation of natural daylight, seasonal shading needs, entries to be designed to provide weather protection, exterior finishers and colors appropriate for the environment, and landscape pedestrian walkways and connections throughout the site. Off-street parking, obviously, to be screened, and incorporate mechanical venting screens to limit their impact on views. So that's basically, our, these are the sort of the guidelines that we started off on. And I can just flip to some project data here. So our proposed site coverage is 53%. We're permitted 100. Our potential floor, or our floor area allowable is 2.0 FAR, and our building is coming in just under that at 1.65. Our allowable building height in the zone is 11 meters. There was previously an approved DP that allowed a variance of 19.8 meters. This proposal is proposing a 16-meter height, so we're actually kind of coming down in height from the previous application. Our parking is, we've got a number of stalls on the surface, and we've got a below-grade parking garage. We have a total of 91 stalls, and the total required is 87. So we're just a couple of stalls over to provide a little bit more convenience. The building is, as we go through the design, this is going to be have a performance energy level of step code 3. So that requires an energy consultant to be involved to run energy modeling. So our building is becoming much more efficient than the base level for BC Building Code. So we'll just move through the site. Our building's located right here. We've got commercial on ground floor. We have residential, accessible residential units, which is an amendment that we need to request, but I'll sort of get into that a little bit more. We have primary entry off of Bagshaw, and we have some surface parking here adjacent to the commercial frontages. There's a commercial entryway at the corner here, and there's another entryway into commercial space right off of Bagshaw. We've got a sort of a culturally enriched facade and landscape plan, and with seating and bike parking to kind of create that urban culture at street level. And then we have our parking areas along here, and then a ramp that takes you down into the parkade. So this elevation number 1 gives you a vignette of the from Bagshaw with there's a 2-story commercial component on the corner. We've got commercial frontages here and commercial frontages along the side of the building with deep overhangs where you enter into it. Image number 2 is another shot, just sort of looking at the front of the building, showing the commercial spaces and the residential above. View 3 shows that corner and some of our landscape screening, and then we've got some fence screening around the accessible units. The building flanks onto the Jensen green space right of way. There's a natural sort of water course there that we are hoping to tap into as part of our bioswale systems on the south and on the north. So yeah, that gives you the primary entry into the residences is identified as a different, with different materials and a different form and character, so that it's obvious to people arriving where the commercial spaces are and where the entry into the residential suites and the building is as well. So our parking garage down below grade, we've got a total of 63 underground parking spaces tucked underneath the building, and where we can, this one here isn't necessarily a accessible stall by the bylaw, but it's extra wide, so we're trying to provide as much friendly stalls. If someone does need a little bit of extra space for mobility, then it is located and it's right across from the lobby space. On the next floor up, we've got, this is our main ground floor plan. So the green illustrates the commercial space on the lower floor, and the blue color is the residential suites that are proposed on the ground floor. The primary entry into the condo portion of the building is here. We've got lobby spaces, elevator cores, and residential amenity spaces right next to the entryway. The parkade ramp is located here. We've got in the top northwest corner is a community amenity space with raised planter beds where occupants can possibly grow their own, do a little bit of herb garden growing and sort of urban gardening. And then and we have pedestrian connections around the building so that people on the ground floor can walk around the building and access the amenity space. These vignettes just sort of give you a view of the form and character of the entryway. We got gates across Bagshaw and screening for the parking along the north side. This face looks out over towards the back of Thrifty's, just as a way of orientating you. Thrifty's is up to the north. This vignette illustrates the form and character of the entry into the residential building. And we'll just go up through the floor plans here. On the second floor, there is a small second floor commercial component with deck space, so that office spaces can open out onto a deck, and there'd be a little bit more activity on the building at the second floor with overlook down into the street. The rest of the building is residential beyond that. This is the Jensen Greenway. We've got picket screening along here, which I can touch on when I read the landscape architect's notes. And up onto the floor above, so we've got a residential floor above. This is a view of the southwest corner, where we've articulated our materials, a combination of hardy panel and a veneer, vinyl wood look veneer panel to help articulate the residential, and a different colored hardy material on the lower floor to sort of create that separation between ground plane and the upper residential floors. Up to the top floor, and a view from the The northwest, this is the community space, the community amenity space down in the corner here. The ramp into the parkade, the garbage enclosure is fully enclosed. And again, the sort of we're articulating as we wrap around the building, our roof planes kind of run horizontally and vertically to bring a sense of scale to the building. Our roof plan just is here to illustrate that any mechanical equipment will have louvered screening around it. Because of our energy efficiency, our roof system is actually, we're building a rigid insulation package on top of our roof structure. So this eliminates the sort of huge amount of vents and various other things that are required on roof planes. So our roof plane actually becomes very quiet and simple, and we're draining our rainwater into the center of the building that way. So we're eliminating all of the extra mechanical stuff that you would normally see on the outside of the building down to the interior. This is basically our materials palette. So we've got a range of materials that are muted in character with accent materials and that wood look panel board, and then we've got guardrails with glass infill for the residential balconies up above, and aluminium storefront and curtain wall systems for our commercial space. So they're differentiating between the commercial floor and the residential floors above. I'll go through our elevations quickly. It just sort of, these are the tagged materials. So you can see across the elevation of the building, we're using the materials to create vertical and horizontal separations between the masses of the buildings. We've identified the residential entryway with an extra large roof overhang and curtain wall glazing to make it as open and inviting as possible. And again, with the commercial spaces, we're using a commercial grade window and scale that really sort of helps to differentiate between where you would go for business and where the residential exists. The elevations as we go around, south elevation, which is looking into the Jensen Parkway, the west elevation, which looks over the Evergreen Parkway, and here is the sheet that we wanted to just touch on, the variance that we're asking for height. So we've, as I said, our previously approved application was approved with a variance of 19.8 meters. And our proposed building here is requesting that our building height be 16 meters, which is a variance of approximately 5 meters. The permitted height within the C3 zone is 11 meters. So this variance facilitates the additional floor on the building and any other overruns for elevators and the screening of mechanical equipment, etc. And then the amendment that I had referred to earlier is basically to accommodate accessible housing units on the ground floor, which is a slight shift from what is currently permitted. So these ground floor units are designed to be as adaptable as possible. So we're hoping that there will be a range of accessibility needs met with these ground floor orientated units. And then I will just quickly touch on some of the landscape stuff. So this is Karen McDonald from McDonald Gray is our landscape consultant, and she's been working with Bill on this project from the inception. So here we go. Planting plan focuses on screening the off-street parking from the neighboring commercial property and from Bagshaw Street. The Bagshaw off-street parking is screened with a coniferous yew hedge and layered shrub planting. The neighboring commercial to the north is screened with a combination of a 2 meter solid timber fence and shrub planting. This area is also a stormwater infiltration swale that incorporates stonescaping with tree and shrub planting. The residential units are screened from the south and the west right-of-ways with 2 meter solid timber fence and trees and shrub planting. The commercial spaces are screened from the south right-of-way and Bagshaw Street with a metal picket fence and shrub planting. Another infiltration bioswale is visible from inside the southern commercial space and is treated with the same stonescaping, boulders, and shrub planting. 2 marked pedestrian crossings are provided within the surface parking areas, that is across here and at the entry here to connect over to the pathway to the amenity space. As a wayfinding device, pedestrian walkways around the building entrances and parking areas will use decorative finish and textured paving to identify pedestrian zones and facilitate the ease of navigation to main entries. The decorative paving will also act as a tactile device along pedestrian routes to differentiate between drive aisles and to enhance the wayfinding and improve safety. Ground floor residential patios will have metal picket fencing and gates for ground level access to the walkway that connects to the north side of the property, which is coming out of here and being able to walk and access around to the amenity space and then out onto the towards Bagshore Street. A community garden space with raised planters is in the northwest corner of the site, with benches and picnic tables and planting areas are provided in this amenity space. A bench node and 6 bike racks are located at the front of the building, that's in this area. Front of the building adjacent to the main commercial entrances, and a mix of native and non-native drought tolerant plant species have been incorporated into the landscape plan. Where space permits, shade trees have been provided for the ground floor patios to the south and to the west. You can see these there. And shade trees will also be provided along the north property line. All of the lighting is to be dark sky compliant, and I will just flip on. Before I get to that, I'll just complete this. So this shows the landscape design for our bioswale. So there are 2 of them, as I mentioned, on the north and the south, which are taking stormwater from the surface parking areas and cleaning it as it returns back to the ground. These are diagrams of the fencing that I believe Cara has referenced for compliance with the bylaw. And the lighting I was talking about is indicated here. There are various kinds. So we've got our soffit lighting, we've got our downlight for the pole mounts to illuminate the parking areas, and then we have wall-mounted fixtures, which again are downlit, and then we have bollard lighting, which is all downlit and dark sky compliant. And it's hard to see, but all the little red dots there kind of illustrate how we are providing a safe and secure, but muted and sort of dark sky compliant lighting scheme for the entire project. And I will just end on one last rendering illustrating the ways that we've architecturally tried to articulate our building to carve up areas where commercial space is relevant and addresses the human scale at street frontage with a bit of a prominent corner piece. And then our roof planes are clean and simple, run vertically and horizontally to connect together and create an interesting and articulated facade presence at Bagshore Street and around the whole building. So I will not do too much more talking because I know we're on a time crunch, but happy to clarify anything or answer any questions. Thank you.
There we go. This is when we sort of do a roundtable reactions to the project, comments, and whatever. And this is open to the applicant to listen to. So unless somebody would like to volunteer to go first, otherwise we'll pick somebody.
I could go.
Thank you, Bruce.
I got it. Good. I noticed the new version of the plans is different than the checklists that were included in our package, the sustainable community checklist and the accessible community builders checklist. in there you say there aren't any rentals, but I believe the whole building is now rental. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. So just at some point, you'll need to update those checklists, I guess. My background is as a building technologist and more technical aspects. I did want to ask you about the parking. The surface parking, is that all CRU parking?
There's 2 visitor spots, and there's 2 common fully operational EV charging stations.
Okay.
On the surface.
Because they weren't noted on the plan.
Yeah, there should be. There was, and then in the underground, there's 2 EV charging stations that are fully operational, along with 1/3 of all stalls roughed in.
Okay, so of the 15, no, of the, how many surface stalls were there? 28?
28.
Yeah, so of those then 24 are residential or 24 are CRU?
And then also 8 included in the downstairs. So just so everyone is aware, this
Mhm.
commercial space is actually more of a design build for a customer client that has been operating in Parksville for over 30 years. And they're looking for a more accessible area with more parking. They've asked me not to name the name because they want to let it out with the city and stuff. But people will probably guess what it is, or it's a small town and it goes around. So that we're design building this for them. It's basically what it is, that area. And parking is a big requirement. And as you can see, with us getting as much parking in there as we can, we're also making it mandatory that people take a parking spot. So unlike other rentals where they're saying you're going to pay $75 or $100 for underground, every unit in this project is assigned a parking spot. So we don't have them parking out on the road or in Thrifty's parking lot.
Okay. The reason I bring it up though is to do with security, because I see that the CRU parking and the residential parking is all one big space, and they're all using the same stairwell to get to the top, and they all go through the residential lobby. Is that correct?
No, to get to their upstairs CRU space, they have a stairwell from CRU2, and they also have an accessible
No, from the parkade, from the
parkade.
underground parkade.
Yes.
Everyone.
So they have eight assigned spots to CRU
Yeah.
people, and that's for their admin staff, administration staff.
Okay. So they're allowed to go through the lobby
Yeah.
of the residence,
Yeah.
and those residential doors then either aren't locked or those people have keys. Sorry.
All fob.
They've all got fobs. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. And is the ramp security gate that's closed all the time? They have fobs for that
That's
too.
also fob.
Okay,
And then the whole site will be security with cameras.
okay,
It's both, it'll be a residence location and of course the commercial space location where they have their secure go.
Okay.
Be looking after their security.
perfect, thanks. You don't know off the top of your head how much higher this building is than Thrifty's next door?
Thrifty's is about, well, that whole side is, Thrifty's has no windows, so when we did our
Yeah.
site studies, it didn't affect them. They're around 24 feet high. Because when we designed the last building, we wanted, the height was meant to be because it was condos. So when you look at this, they're probably about halfway up the 3rd floor.
Okay, I'm just curious from a
Yeah, we
neighborhood
dropped the building
massing.
considerably, and the sight lines were more involved with the property in the back that was on the other side of the walkway, and so that's how
Okay.
the building was designed, not to interfere, because they have a 14-foot hedge that runs along there.
Okay. My last comment was just about the residential units on the ground floor now, which appears to be specifically excluded in the downtown commercial C3 zoning, which was included in our package, so that applies, doesn't it? Item number 213.7, other requirements, it says limit the residential use exclusively to the stories above the first story of a building. So I assume you're going to apply for a variance?
That's zoning bylaw amendment.
Right. So
Has been-
you are,
Is being applied.
it's being applied for, okay.
So the main purpose of moving the accessible units to that floor was partially because of the input of the other group, and that's kind of what brought that plan to my head, because I've done other projects where we rent into what people want to rent, and we rip the tub out, put a shower in.
Mhm.
So we thought to keep it on the main floor, easily accessible to the amenity space and to the charging spaces we have a scooter,
Oh, yeah.
handicap charging stalls in the scooter room. We're able to recess the shower, so now there's no
Mhm.
lips at all. We're going to recess the suspended slab.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I like it. Don't get me
Yeah,
wrong.
we've been able to make all the openings, kitchen design that Dana's been doing, so
Mhm.
because you have people that, they can't reach, the fans are all accessible from counter height, so turning on so we've kind of thought it through with the input from the lady that runs next door, because that's what they deal with, that kind of stuff. So,
Okay. I only have one other small comment, and that's on the residential entry. It's covered, but the roof is 2 stories up, and I know how windy it gets here. Is there any way of putting some sort of an eyebrow at the door height, incorporated maybe with the storefront?
Yeah, I think if that's brought as a recommendation through panel, then
Yeah.
we'd
I
be able to.
I don't know. I'm just
Yeah.
bringing it up that
yeah.
they
The
might.
big thing is the glazing effect there. I think that would affect a lot. We did do a substantial overhang, which might not be as
Mhm.
visible
Yeah,
there.
it is on the north side, and
Yeah.
I've been here 4 years, but I know that it is pretty windy sometimes, and the rain does get driven sideways. But anyway, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, why don't we go in order? Kate, would you go next?
Okay, firstly, thank you very much for your presentation. It's nice project to see. I'm not sure if do we comment on the variance? Sorry, to the chair or to the, through the chair?
You certainly can comment
Okay.
on the variance. It ultimately is a council decision, and it's entirely discretionary at council, and it's a little bit outside the scope of the design, but absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Well, firstly, I don't have an issue with the variance. I think the way you've treated um, the materials of the building and the different heights, and I don't see it. I see this fitting in with all the new development that's happening behind you and near the commercial. So I don't have an issue with that. And I'm going to mostly speak to the exterior, since I'm a landscape architect on the panel. And Kara's not here, so I can't ask her, but we'll see what happens. What I'm mostly concerned with is the pedestrian routes and how accessible they are. I'm mostly with that one light, the lighting that is. So if you cross over to the north side, there seems to be a lamp standard right in the route, and I'm not sure. It seems like it's a pinch point if someone was in a wheelchair or any kind of. Do you see where right? Yes, right there.
Yeah.
So that my recommendation would be to just ensure that all pedestrian routes are accessible, because I can see one of your units would have to use that route to get to the common area. Is that correct? Yeah, right. They don't have they can't go to the back.
Oh,
Okay.
That's all
Yeah.
concrete. That's part of the bioswale system. Their access is down there, has to go across to get into this area. That gate's not the area to enter in.
Is it more clear? Do you have more clarity?
Yeah, I think it's cleared up because Karen stated the fact that some of that access is an emergency type access there. And she didn't put a light. I don't think the light standard is in the way, because we actually discussed that. So I don't know if
Okay.
there's bad placement on there or not.
Okay, well, I'll probably just leave it like, just to ensure
Yeah,
that everything
so that
is,
there's content. We
yeah.
also make any of the sidewalks in and around, and that's why we put those
okay,
where you see the gates going into the commercial, so that it's all accessible, so you don't have to go all the way around to
Yeah.
come back in, but still show definition between the sidewalks, so you don't have people cutting across that
yes,
don't belong there, because there's quite heavy traffic on that.
yes,
that
yeah.
walkway.
Okay, thank you. So just, my main comment is that you have a lot of paving surface and hard surfacing, and just by the nature of how you've oriented the building and the relationship of your parking to the adjacent property parking. And I appreciate that there has been efforts to screen the adjacent property parking, but I am more concerned with residents who overlook your parking lot, who are your residents, and that they are looking right onto a hard surfacing. And I know you're constrained, and you've communicated how that you're trying to achieve a certain amount of parking for those CRU units, but I would love to see some softening of that parking for those second-story balconies. If you can find a way, I think your project would benefit from that, and the residents would benefit from that, so that they're not looking down onto parking. Their vegetation they have is across the parking and over. So that would be one. It may not be possible, but it would be to look into ways of improving the views to the parking of your residents. I know in the guidelines it talks of adjacent parking and public space, or public space looking into your space, but I would also encourage you to contemplate the views from the residential building there onto the parking. And also, when you look into your site to the residential entrance, the majority of the view to the north is parkade entry, concrete wall, and building, and I don't see a lot of softening of those with green material, and then there might be potential there for the landscape architect to, yes, so if you were to look straight down, I think there was one view. Yeah. It looks like there's some opportunity there to use the vegetation to your advantage somehow, whether it's something growing over, because you just have, you see that whole view is hard. And so that I think there's opportunity there. And then I have another question is sort of, I see that back, it's great that you have space, raised planters, a community amenity space with the gardens. But I'm wondering if that corner there's not a lot of, because of that being put in the corner, you don't have a lot of visual buffering to the adjacent commercial properties. So you have nothing of height or no trees, for example, in that corner. I heard you say that the neighboring property has a large hedge, but is that correct? Does Thrifty? Yeah, but
That's on the other side.
yeah, okay. Yeah, so that corner, I'm just thinking the landscape architect, maybe with a little bit of rejigging, you could get a few trees in that corner and it's not over the parkade. And then you would buffer that view as well for your property.
You look at that ramp,
Mhm.
that ramp actually extends right to the end of the building. So now you probably have only about that area where the top two planters are.
Yeah.
Where there is no concrete. So,
Yeah.
but we have that's where our hydro platform comes in.
Okay.
They're very kind of particular, right? Because we have to be 3 feet below surface. And they were already worried about just the planters, but when we told them they were surface, they were okay with it. But they call busy when they see trees and greenery that can have roots growing down towards their pipes, that they'll want us to take that into consideration as well.
Okay, well, anyway, I'm just making a suggestion that maybe if there's room, and or just considering how to, I think you could get more vegetation with planters above, maybe with, anyway, I just see that as a missed opportunity, and maybe maybe the utilities are your constraint, but maybe there is still room there to improve the buffering, the landscape buffering, because it's really just going to be low, and you're just going to be looking at a fence there at that corner, and then beyond to that PMT of the adjacent property, and then parking lot and backup building, right? I think so. If there's room, or maybe it's creative use with vines, or even a trellis structure to create height with vines, that would be a easy way to buffer that corner. I don't want to tell the landscape architect what to do, but just that it feels like a missed opportunity to improve the quality of that space for the residents. I could, my first time I'm talking too much. And then I would love to hear from through the chair to the city, the Jensen Avenue right of way. I'm assuming that there's going to be some significant tree planting going on in there, or am I making up?
Um, It's if I may through the chair, it's a little unknown. We've had some issues with folks kind of hanging out in vegetation as of late. And so I think we will, if we do plant vegetation, we'll be looking at things that maybe aren't good for concealing people to conceal themselves amongst. So I mean, with the city loves trees and would love to have lots of trees there. It's just working out how to do it in a way that isn't going to cause issues.
Okay, thank you. I just was thinking that there's opportunity to, I know the site is very constrained and Kara's put in a few trees there, but that you may want more shading for that side of the building, but not knowing what's happening, it's a bit hard to do that. I'll just leave it there for now. And then, but thank you again for your presentation. I think it will be an interesting, I look forward to seeing it.
Thank you, Kate. So Maureen.
Yeah. I'm pretty loud. You probably don't need this, but anyway, thank you for your presentation. Very well done. I've enjoyed looking at your plans again. I'm an ex-land use consultant and I haven't been able to go through very many plans in the last 5 or 6 years. So I thoroughly enjoyed sitting down, going through all of those and all of these. And I'm going to speak to you mostly, I guess, about the parking spaces, disability parking spaces, or as they put in here, handicap parking spaces. We need to change that, city. The first parking spot that you have on here, number 28, as you come in off of Bagshaw, and it's directly to your left. And that would be the first, yes, right there. So that's the first disabled parking spot. As you come in off of Bagshaw, either from the north or the south, I guess is the way I'm going here, you would then come in and front into that handicap parking spot at number 28. Most handicapped, actually 100% of handicapped accessible vans open to the rear or to the passenger side. So if you pull into that parking spot and you need to get me out of the passenger side of my van, I'm going to hit the car in parking lot number 27. Mm-hmm. He's not going to leave me enough room to get out of my van unless my van is parked so far close to that sidewalk that my husband wouldn't be able to get out of the car. So the fact, I love that you have a disabled parking spot there, but it would not work for anyone with a disabled van. It just wouldn't work. The next one will work.
We could pick it up and move it over to.
And that's exactly what you need to do. That one is not going to work. And people don't realize about vans and how they open, but 100%, if they have a side opening, it's on the passenger side. If it's on the back opening, if they pulled into 28 and they open the rear and you're pulling a wheelchair out of the back of your van, you're right in the area of entrance, or exit. So that doesn't work either. I've noticed also that there's only the 2 disabled parking stalls above ground and 1 happy or friendly parking spot down in the basement or in the garage. 2 handicap parking spaces and 7 accessible units. We nearly all, I love that you have the scooter parking and the wheelchair parking and all of that. Exactly. I know this is a constrained site and your parking is really constrained for the number of units that are in here. But I think with 7 accessible units, 5 of those people are most likely going to have vehicles. If not, 4 to 5 are going to have vehicles. The one downstairs in the garage, again, number 58, very difficult to get into. I would think that your stalls number 1, 2, and 3 could be reorganized so that you would come down the ramp and directly into those stalls and then be able to get directly back out again. And you're just across the way that way from the elevator. So you'd get out and in.
Biggest constraints in the underground parking are the columns.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, when you're structurally building a building, it seems to gridlock us everywhere. We've actually moved them 3 times just to make the structural and the parking work.
But I'm sorry, and with respect, 1, 2, and 3 could be made into 2 handicap spaces.
Do they go in? Do they meet?
Yeah, we would lose a stall.
Yeah, you would lose the stall.
You would lose a stall, but you would have disabled parking or more disabled parking for 7 units. Because those disabled, depending upon what's going in your CRUs, I can imagine that those disabled parking spaces, the 2 that are above ground, are going to be taken up during the day, certainly, by people coming to the CRUs, if it's medical or if it's physiotherapy or any of those kind of things. So it's just a matter of making sure that there's enough parking and you can get in and out of it easily as a person with disabilities. The other thing I wanted to note was oftentimes when you have a residential commercial mix, they're very good about putting automatic opening doors on the residential portion, but they forget to do it on the commercial doors. And accessible buttons.
They're all in.
Okay, because it's the doors of what has happened is that I went to a physiotherapist yesterday. It was after market. He went in there after the building had already been built. They had not put an accessible door on his unit to go in, and after market, it's too much for him to do it now.
So for our customer, it's actually a very huge input for accessibility. They receive funding for those things.
Okay,
So that's why there's also the accessible lift to go to the 2nd floor in the commercial space.
right. I saw that, yeah.
So that's a big part of our working with them.
Uh-huh.
All the bathrooms, they get
Saw
grant
that.
funding because of accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mhm.
just so you get it.
Yep, that's good, good. The intercom, when you put in your intercom, can you please make it so that seated people can reach it? That's something that I go through all the time. I can't reach it. There's no way. Same with your cupboards in the kitchen. Can you kind of bring them down a
Well,
little
you
bit?
know, actually stuff that we're doing in the accessible units. include,
Oh,
like I
that'll be
said,
later.
Push buttons for the hood fans, microwaves at below counter level so they're accessible. Drawers that pull out become countertop area.
Oh, great,
So,
yeah.
So Dana's actually been looking after that. and going to kitchen
Thanks, Dana.
designer. So it's something that was actually a huge learning curve for me as well. And I know Dana, like, I didn't understand until they put the paperwork in front of me, including like the bathrooms, the swing areas for wheelchair. That's all been incorporated. We actually had to adjust 2nd, 3rd, and third floor pipe runs to make sure that
You could do
accessibility
that.
would work on the
Thank
first
you.
floor.
I have done this all my life. I didn't know anything about
No,
accessibility
it's a big
either.
learning curve.
Until I got into my wheelchair, I thought, oh yeah, they can get in that door, no problem. Not
Yeah,
necessarily.
even the swings.
You can't, yeah.
So that's all been looked at.
Good.
Actually had a guideline with Claire, Glenn, and Dana working with.
So with that, who will be managing those accessible units in your building? Will they be managed, will the whole building be managed by a management company?
We're looking at Devon properties.
Okay, good. And are they going to also be in charge of renting the accessible units? Or is that going to go with a
Well, usually what happens-
nonprofit?
What we were thinking about there is we're going to start the campaign for rentals, and the client that's going next door has a large footprint in the city. She was actually going to work with me as well, because she has some of their client bases, mobility restraint and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
she wants to be part of that as well. So,
Okay, so, but they will be managed and they will have certain
like the rental,
requirements to
they're
get
actually
into the building?
We're hoping to set, what we've done in this building is, I don't know if you've noticed, there's 1, 2, and 3 bedroom
Yeah.
units. So the priority is always going to be to go to the accessible units. We'll go to the disabled persons that apply, and the other units, which are similar in size, will go to the other people.
Right.
Now, after 6 months, if there's 2 units not rented because we can't find anybody, of course, as an owner, you're going to try and rent them out.
Mhm.
But our priority is going to be, I put those in for that purpose.
Right,
Because I never realized, like, I do thousands of units across Canada as an interior finisher. I own Van Rock Interiors, so we do drywall, insulation, paint. How a lot of times they put these handicapped accessible as a fill-in somewhere, and it doesn't work. Like, you want to be in the farthest away from an elevator.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's why we kind of put this as a module. You'll see it's kind of has its own circular path around it, and it's accessible that way. That's why we decided to put them all in that area.
right. Thank you. Through the chair to staff, has there been a covenant through any kind of rezoning on the management of the accessible units?
If I may, through the chair, so the rezoning is a very minor rezoning to allow for residential units on the ground floor that would otherwise be precluded.
But there's no agreement with any organization about the renting or utilization of the accessible units?
It'd be great to find out if somebody wanted to head that up and add people
Right,
on the list,
right.
which I'm not. like
No,
said,
no,
this is
I
new
just,
to me.
I'm
So
just
if you were to
wondering.
say X company actually helps locate people with disabilities, I'd love to sit down and talk to them.
Okay.
So
I'll-
that has never been brought before, so it's, and I'm entirely new to this type of process.
Yeah, I'll maybe talk to you about that. The other thing I had to ask, so I will get a copy of the rezoning and look at
If-
that, yes?
Well, so nothing's gone to council yet,
Okay,
but nothing's been proposed as you've described.
okay, you know what I mean, an agreement in principle.
That would be up to the applicant if they're prepared to propose some kind of agreement and.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Your amenity area in the upper left corner, I'm not noticing on the lighting plan that there's very much lighting in that area at all. And I'm also noticing that it's not going to get an awful lot of sun. So if we're wanting to grow vegetables there, I would think that I was going to have some real trouble up against 2 6-foot, 8-foot fences of solid wood, unless I just grow begonias or impatiens or.
Because we were looking for that space, and that's the only place where there's still dirt. This is you know what I mean? Everything's
do.
concrete.
I do. So maybe,
Unfortunately, in order to make all the requirements work, you get cut down ability. You try to do a little bit of everything.
I know, and then, and I hate to say it, but sometimes you try and do a little bit of everything and then nothing is as usable or as easily used as you would like it to
In
be.
my last project, we had an area about that size, and they suggested to make a picnic area with a light that turned out to be a place for vandalism and
Yeah,
problems. So
yeah.
we, that the big light.
I'm just thinking that maybe as much as it would be nice to grow vegetables for the people in the units, it might be a better use of the area to maybe have an outdoor area for picnics or
That's what I meant.
something a little less.
We did that in the last one, and it ended up.
Yeah,
all
but this
area
is
all the
quite
time.
enclosed. This is a rather more enclosed area than the area I think you may be. No? Okay. Well, there
It
you
was
go.
all the way at the back, similar to this,
Yeah.
other than a light, and there was 2 picnic tables and a little hard concrete table, and some people seem to find it at the back and hang out there.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that in a couple of years, it's just going to be 5 boxes of overgrown weeds.
So
And
we'll
I'd like to see something more than 5 boxes of
we'll take,
overgrown weeds in a couple of
we'll
years.
regroup and have a
Yeah.
think about a better
Um,
utilization of that
sorry.
space.
A minute here. You're sorry, I've got a whole bunch of stuff here. It sounds like you've really had a good look at making this more accessible than a lot of buildings around town. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, one of the other things that hasn't been mentioned that we noticed in our other projects, especially with people, is the Amazon food delivery stuff. So we've actually are putting snail lockers in here, so they don't feel like they have to go down to the door when a package arrives. It'll be that the Amazon delivery guy will have a code, walk up to it just like you do a Canadian Tire, punch in the code, open the thing, put your package, your food, Amazon thing, close it, send you a text saying, this is your code to get in. They go downstairs and get it at their own retrieval. So our last project, Dana became the Amazon girl for about a month while people moved in because stuff kept coming. And the people weren't there or didn't want to come downstairs. So now there'll be, we call them snails lockers. They're basically electronic lockers that permit packages to be dropped off without any need for person-to-person meeting.
I've never heard of those. Would those be a box for each person or would
No,
it be
they're-
just
they're
a
actually-
box?
There's a bank of them, so and they can be heated or cooled as well.
Okay.
So let's say you're into this food delivery.
Never
stuff.
have been.
No, but I'm just saying for some people, and I know people
Yes.
that work in the world, sometimes they come home and there's a bag of Eat Fresh at their front door or in the lobby. This restricts that to be put into an enclosed area with a code that's sent to you, just like when you go to Canadian Tire and you buy something online. It's similar to that.
Right.
It just makes it easier, especially for elderly people that don't want to go meet the Amazon guy. When he comes by at 6 PM, they can go down at their own leisure to get it.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dariush, you would be next.
Thank you. Thank you for presentation. First, I'm gonna start with the things I really like about the project, and then few minor stuff, which is not really big deal, but I think the project's very, I liked about the mixed use. You have a commercial and office plus residential mix in the project. Some developer, they don't go that way. They either wanted to do commercial or residential. That is very big plus for this project. It's good to having mixed use. If we go a little bit higher, I wanted to look at the elevation. I think, no, sorry, lower the rendering. Yeah, I like the very nice, clean and design of the projects. Is very fluid and is elegant, is good projects, good design. Thank you. The couple of questions in the design of the project. In the decks, you do have a couple of the double columns. Those are structural or just decorative?
These ones here?
Yeah, there is there and there is some
Yeah,
in the
around there. I
back.
believe they're structural.
They are structural.
It's actually what this drawing doesn't show since our last structural meeting. There's two columns that fall into the main level on that facade as well.
Yeah.
And they make the entryway centered.
Yeah.
But there's two columns that have to be proposed down
Yeah.
for structural.
Yeah.
It's great to be structural and functional, but the structural, honestly, they use one and they say, use another one for the,
For
you know,
decoration, yeah.
just for decoration. It's nice to have it both if they can do, but those are good. I also see some boxes, flower boxes in front of the railing. They are really looks good, but the maintenance of those may have some issue, access issue in the other side,
Landscaping.
in the second floor, yeah, right there in the front.
Aluminum planters.
Yeah, aluminum plant. Yeah, there. There really looks good. Is in the front. Is nicer than to be in the back in the deck, but it's just a maintenance issue.
I think this was more brought on through our landscaper. The actual owner of that commercial space would rather not have them. So it would be a discussion, between the city of Parksville and us on what they want to see on that second floor.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So they don't want anything that grows high there because that's going to be kind of like their de-stress area, dealing with the lower floor. And then they have a lunchroom up there and they've never had that before. They're hoping to sit out there and de-stress.
Yeah.
That's why.
It is a big deck, so they probably can put some planters here, yeah, wherever they
Which would
want.
be great for
Yeah.
everybody, but
Yeah.
according to our landscape architect, that's something we thought that we should have in there for the city of Parksville. So until COP says, yeah, we don't need that stuff.
Then just moving on the few item I saw, I know our job is not to talk about anything interior, just a note, the stairs in the center in the corner doesn't looks like have access to outside at the main floor. It has to be straight out. Unless that corridor in the back.
This corridor is extension of.
Okay,
of the
so it
exit.
should be door there, because right now it doesn't show the door.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the,
That should
that's
be
the
a-
shared lobby exit, right?
Okay. Regarding some items our other colleague mentioned, I think that the eyebrows, maybe glass eyebrows at the interior is a good idea to add it, as our colleague mentioned, yeah, it's too tall. Formally is really good, the form and looks, but functionally may not 100% work because of the being too tall.
Would you recommend dropping that whole
No, I'm saying
area?
just adding the,
double eyebrow?
yeah, glass canopy, yeah.
Okay.
And with not, that glass canopy also do not change the looks of the building
Yeah,
either.
that's a big thing. I really like this.
Yeah, it looks great, so that's why I'm suggesting to go glass to not change the looks of the
Yep.
thing. Regarding the landscaping, I do build things, the in that side of the commercial side is really a little bit too dry. Maybe some planters where you have a smaller car stalls, 22 and 23, I believe. And maybe some small planters, something there to add some little bit of the, greenness there. These are very suggestive and yeah,
Everything we
you may
discussed
not or,
Care was nothing for people to crawl into or hide behind.
yeah.
Don't want to say it, but we had until we put security in, we had a bit of an
Yeah.
issue there that we've dealt with now. But, I don't want it to reoccur like the Lombardi where anything we put a nice edge, people moved in.
Yeah.
It was actually, for our owners there, it was a big issue because they go out to the back green space. If somebody crawled underneath a nice lush bush, right? So it's sad in this world that that's what it's come to, but you're almost trying to protect your tenants from having any type of interference or engagement with other people that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, it's just a suggestion.
Yeah, no, anything that can be like,
Yeah.
I'll talk to Carol, something that could be maybe more high up and then evolves, right? So that we just don't give them that lower area.
Yeah, maybe something suggest, like green wall at the right, attached to the wall, something like that growth, in the base of the wall goes to the wall in the gray area, between the two commercial and just give the little bit, life, nature to there. So the last item is accessible parking. I seconded you. It's some municipality, actually, they said you have to have a stall per unit. You have a handicap unit, you have to have one per handicap unit, plus 1 or 2% of the overall parking. So you have it's not here. I don't want to name other municipality, but this is the things I see every day, everywhere. I am architect, so I do see the things here and there. So yeah, some municipalities, they have that bylaw, and basically if you're offering 3 accessible unit, you have to have a 3 accessible parking plus 1 or 2%, whatever the bylaw is for the accessibility. And also, what other thing they do is if you have a surplus parking, they're using permeable pavers to reduce the thing. I know we are above the underground parking area, we can't do that, but that's some
Yeah,
municipal.
there isn't any,
Yeah.
this was brought up previously, because it is basically all
Yeah.
underground parking. You don't want to
Yeah,
risk
you-
having leaks going through impervious
Yeah.
paving. So what we did was put in the bioswales on both sides.
Yeah.
And then we have a fairly large catch basin that
Yeah.
actually controls the flow from storm and stuff. There's a
Yeah.
Catch box there that fills full of water, slow the flow of water down into the storm system.
Yeah, we have 3, our stalls are, well, we're 4 in excess. So there's 4 stalls in excess. And if we choose to consider some of the additional accessible parking stalls, and
You may lose.
we may end up,
Yeah,
Mhm.
not.
or losing 1 or 2 anyway.
Yeah.
But it would be an opportunity, I suppose, if there's 1 or 2 left on the surface, somewhere beyond the parking garage, that we might be able to consider that. But it's, yeah.
Yeah, and the very last one, is the design is great. Unfortunate, we are looking at the north side. If this building looking the other way around, and we have a south facing to the, entrance will be great, but we are coming from highway, you wanted your commercial to be exposed, and you wanted to have your residents facing to the south. So, yeah, it is.
Yeah, we wanted separation from the mall, because when you look at the back of the mall, it's probably as unattractive as it can get from the
Yeah.
backside of the mall.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand why you did this.
Probably would've put
I'm-
it around, right?
Yeah,
So
I
that's the
understand.
main reason.
Yeah, I understand why you did it. I'm saying unfortunately, we don't have it.
Yeah, it's definitely a site that comes with interesting complexities, right?
I think from our perspective, the whole site is going to be a game changer for that location. The commercial space, that the way it's being used, you can walk, bike, scooter, to everything without having to drive your car in. I think that was a big thing for us when we looked at it, is that, you know, driving in cars get less and less. You can have an electric bike and pretty much go anywhere around Parksville or walk down to the Napa Theater. And, you know, the need for two cars might not be necessary for people anymore. You'll hopefully convert to one car. You got an doctor's appointment, you got to drive to the medical center, go to the Napa. So that was the reason for a larger bike scooter room, EV cars, charging stations, and assigning a car to every unit, so you don't have that, let's park along the side road and then all the neighbors are mad. So, I mean, that was our biggest reason to lay it out. We did, and the accessible units was an afterthought after we met up with the other people and they were discussing all the issues they have with stuff like that. So I'll be honest, for a person that's not in a wheelchair, which is me, it was a learning curve. We don't think that stuff through. That kind of changed your thought on where to put them.
Yeah. So overall, great project. Congratulations, and looking to see this to build.
Thank you.
So the advantage of going last is all my points have been taken. And you checked a lot of boxes already when you did your presentation, so congratulations on that. It's a great looking building. I think it looks better than the one that previously was on the site even. I appreciate the decrease actually in the height, and I realize that's because it's a rental and not a condominium and didn't have the ceilings on the top floor. But overall, that's a nice thing for the people who live around this. Love that residential entry. It's such a strong identification. We always harp on people to make it very clear where the residences are entered, and you've done that really well. I totally agree with the glass canopy at the eyebrow. I did structural design of glass for a lot of years in this area, and we were often able to just cantilever sunshades off of the mullions. Occasionally you can do it with a glass canopy that actually has to have snow sitting on it too. So you might want to work with your glass contractor to see if you can cantilever that off, or maybe a couple of slender tie rods up to the upper part of the mullion that you'd hardly notice. But we've dealt with that high roof before. It looks so good, and it just doesn't offer the protection. So I'll back that one.
Is your email still working?
There is a structural column that's in the center of that glazing unit.
That's right.
So at least that's a tie-in point.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes just a deeper mullion will allow you to do the cantilever. There'll be somebody looking after that. But as long as they know they're going in with that.
I think there's an opportunity to maybe integrate it into, more, completely, as opposed to just dangling it over the glass. It may run back to the vertical piece as well, and actually provide a bit of space if someone's standing, fussing with their keys or whatever. So it's a good point.
A question on the color palette, and I think I know the answer, but it's very pale on the wood lockboard on the screen here. It's darker on the elevations here, and when you go to the actual sample in here, it's darker yet. And the one on the sample is a lot closer to what I've seen around town with that product used on other projects. And I think you've used it on other projects as well. I just wanted to confirm that we're looking at the darker color there.
Yes, I believe so.
It's like something washed your slides out here. The commercial unit you mentioned is it's for a specific tenant, and I take it that they're taking that second floor as like a boardroom and cement.
That's the intention.
Office in the area.
Yeah.
So they'll have their finance manager, their executive officer, and then also a lunchroom and a boardroom. Accessibility through that the lift that we put in.
Yep.
Is a key point.
I hear.
So they get separation from the downstairs, which is basically their operations. So they teach stuff, do courses, help that out, and they want to keep that entity that's in the bottom right as an area that in the future they can take the people that they're training and put them into a work situation near them, monitor them, and then say, okay, now you guys are ready to move on. right? So it might be a coffee shop, a dog grooming. They haven't decided yet. So they were just looking, that's why you see there's a mechanical shaft in there. Could be a commercial kitchen. So as they train people and do that kind of stuff, that they can move them on. And they wanted that upstairs just to have separation for their admin so that they're not down below. Say a student comes in or somebody comes in and sees them and has to make contact with them. This way they can have a meeting upstairs and sit down and talk with them and stuff like that.
Okay. And that gave you the opportunity to do that nice corner, which I just wanted to say, I like the 2-story glazing and the fact that you broke the second-story eyebrow around there. Just a little technical question for you, because that's commercial space on the second floor and the third is residential, you have a fire separation between that. Are you going to achieve that with wood framing within the
Yep.
third floor system?
Yep, we
You
can,
don't,
we
you
can
don't need
achieve that.
concrete or anything?
Mhm.
I just didn't want to see that.
That was
That's-
the main reason for making that podium slab, which is the L2 level concrete rather than wood.
Mhm.
So because it's a smaller space, Glenn will attest to it, it can be handled. And then downstairs, which also helps with the soundproofing for your tenants above with the commercial space down below. Right. That's an 11-foot elevation. That allows for a lot of the residential mechanical to run.
Mhm.
Still have a ceiling height for the commercial space down below.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a nice space when you do it that way. Really, anything else I had to say was just that I like the articulation. I like the narrow presence that you see on Bagshaw. Like you don't see a wall right across the site when you drive up to it. It's a very kind of narrow building presenting itself to the street. It leaves a lot of open space around it. So, you know, these are more like compliments as opposed to critiques. So, yeah, that's all I had to say, really. It's a very nice project. I think it'll be a benefit to the area, definitely.
Thanks, Tony.
Are you going to go around one more time, or I have to figure out how to get Councilor Beal turn to speak? Is
Yeah.
there appropriate time for that?
Yeah, I'll just bring that up. So Councillor Beal is going to come in on a Zoom call, and I guess you're going to initiate that now. And I always like to hear comments from our councillor, you know, as part of this go around the table. Perhaps, you know, while Sarah's teeing that up, was there anything that people felt they missed here?
Sorry, it's always me. There's no drop-off area shown at all in front of the building. It would be difficult to drive in there and then drive back out again, drop somebody off. There's no designed or designated area.
Space where the trucks or cars pull in.
Yes.
Go to where the garbage refuge is. There's
Okay,
a
so
lot-
there's a loading,
Yeah, there's a lot
space there.
that
Hmm.
meets the requirements.
right in front of
So they
the
can pull in there and turn around.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Oh, and I was going to say maybe some color rather than having more landscaping on that wall going along the CRU or the commercial units. That there could be something on the walls of color or something that would brighten it up. If you can't put any more greenery in there and it's not going to go, then let's make it a little brighter on that frontage so that they know that that's a different part of the building where the commercial is than the rest. Just a thought. Sorry, Mary.
I had a really quick comment too, so it's me.
Yeah.
Just on the 2 exit doors on the south side, there's a stairwell exit and there's a commercial exit door. You won't be able to, you're not allowed to have the one exit door block the exit for the other exit door. So some of that landscaping is going to have to be deleted so you can get around the open stairwell door. Does that make sense? Get on the ground floor plan? Or on the landscape plan? Actually, it's not on the landscape plan.
Sorry, I just got to flip to it too.
There's 2 exit doors about 20 feet apart. And if the stairwell exit door is open, it blocks the exit for the commercial exit door.
Like the walkway.
So you've got to have room around the open door. I believe that's a code item, but, so it just means some of that landscape next to the fence on the south side would have to be deleted so you can actually get around the open stairwell door. Both doors are shown open on the plan, so it's,
Yeah.
you can see what, yeah. That's the second floor. It's on the first floor, yeah. Yeah, that, right there. So I'm just saying you need some of that landscaping deleted so you can get around the door.
Okay.
Or widen the path there, I guess, to be able to walk around it.
Again, I know this isn't the building code set and that's all going to be checked, so just bringing it up now.
Okay, maybe we could get Mary up on the screen here.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Mary.
I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but I am still recovering from COVID. Not a good thing to have, but anyway. And I did come in a bit late. I'm very sorry for that. And I also disappeared a couple of times because for some reason the Zoom link went, but I think I got most of it. Thank you very much. I really appreciated hearing the various comments from the members of the committee. I do have a couple of just comments myself. One is that it will be wonderful to have this building come to fruition. It will be great to have additional residential eyes on the pathway, which Mr. Russell has mentioned has been an area of a bit of concern. And I think anytime that we can get more residents in areas, then we build a safer community. And I also appreciate that there is some residential on the ground floor, which has a little more connection to the area, I think. And pardon me. And also with the positioning of the parking area to the north side, and adjacent to the Thrifty Plaza, it allows for a nice transition of a buffer area into the further residential area along Bagshaw and also to some degree along Evergreen. So I think it's Evergreen. Yes, it is. So I think those with the layout, and I think as a couple of people have mentioned, the fact that when you're going along Bagshaw, when you look at the building there, it is broken up somewhere and yet still has those nice clean lines. So again, that's really attractive. One question I had was, and maybe it was mentioned, but is there a secure parking for, I'll say bicycles, but these days it might be all kinds of cycle mobility cycle. There was a mention of scooters, but is there also provision for bicycles? And I also wondered at the number of electric vehicle charging spots in the plans.
Yeah, we do have, we've got secure storage in the parkade. The overall number of EVs cars, do we have?
Yeah, so we have 4 EV operational stalls, 2 down, 2 up. We have bikes, scooter, and charging station for electrical bikes on the main floor. We have a multitude of bike racks outside for visiting people. And then downstairs, there's also 39 storage lockers that'll be assigned to units for people to keep their, their bikes, their golf stuff, whatever. So we've kind of tried to spread it all around. Again, so, there's space that you can try to use effectively so that everybody gets a bit of something and nobody gets nothing. So
nice. Yes, no wasted space. Very good. Also a question, you mentioned that there are 4, I believe, operational EV chargers. Is there any consideration for having rough-ins for future EV chargers?
A third of the units will be the west side, basically, of the building will be roughed in.
Okay.
For EV, and there's also going to be solar ducting ran to the roof for the future if it becomes feasible cost-wise to do that in a rental building. It'll be roughed in as well. So the actual electrical panel for the charging stations will be able to adapt to more units as more rental people buy electric vehicles. Right now, it's like I say, I've been involved in a lot of projects around Canada. The numbers aren't quite there for people to afford electric vehicles and rent, but as that changes, hopefully, then it can be upgraded.
Okay. And just to pick up a comment that someone else made is, regarding the edge of the Greenway, what's called the Jensen Greenway now. But I would think and hope that once you know, everything is in place and we do have residential areas along there, that there may be some opportunities for some additional trees that would not provide hidey holes for ne'er-do-wells, but some trees that could provide some additional shade, because that will be a hot side of the building for sure.
Yeah, and
Thank
one
you
part
very
of-
much.
Yeah, one part of the deal with the city of Parksville from us is because we've had an agreement with them to use some of that space, is that we're going to be restoring it with all grass, bioswales back in place, because there's a lot of water that comes off of evergreen through culverts. So we'll be shaping and molding all that to be effective in conjunction with the city of Parksville. And at that point, they might say, yes, you know, make this space flatter for trees or sitting areas and et cetera, et cetera. So that's in the works, just we're not there yet because of what the stage it's at.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so what we want to do now is we've had a go around, and a lot of it was in the form of questions that I think were answered or concerns that were addressed. But in this kind of record of what I've been keeping of the back and forth here, there are several points that come up from a number of members, or that were recommendations that we want to frame in terms of this being development area 3. And it's a fairly brief document, but for example, if one of our items is going to be additional accessible stalls, we'll reference that part of development permit 3 area accessibility. There's probably a sub-clause number and so on that we can reference. And we want to frame this into recommendations. Again, as I say, a lot of the things that were raised were questions that were answered or concerns that were addressed. But I think the ones I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong or add to them, is the weather protection of the front entry, the additional accessible stalls as per accessible housing being in this project. The one I heard a few times was additional vegetation in the landscape plan to soften the overall look of the project. I think that included some possible planters, but that's fairly specific for us to be recommending. I think it should be more of a general framework.
Can we comment on?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
In fact, please jump in and add to it. I'm trying to just give us a starting point.
Sure. I was trying to think of how to summarize what I was finding the most or what I was hoping could be improved upon. And it was really the views from the building that you're proposing and the residents to that whole parking, ramp to parkade, garbage storage, view across to adjacent parkade, and right where, and so in the guidelines, there is reference to having surface area parkings shall generally contain landscape which buffers parking areas from adjacent properties and public spaces. So that doesn't specifically reference what the view is for the residents, but I really think there's a missed opportunity there, and it would be regrettable for your residents, because there's one point where on the landscape plan, I'm just thinking right here, I'm looking across and there's nothing. It's all hard right to the adjacent property. And so there's residences here looking down into the ramp, looking at the garbage, no landscape buffer. So maybe I will put it in the landscape buffer. But anyway, that seems that, so I'm trying to figure out the easiest way to make it very general and reference one of the guidelines.
So could we say something like softening the parking view from the building with surfaces and vegetation, but leave it general, because that's really the scope of the design team.
Yeah, and it might be that you use trellises and vines to do that, because I'm contemplating the view from above, right?
As long as it doesn't appear with the bioswale actually on that side as well. There's that bioswale. It's not much, but there's such small distance of vegetation.
Yes.
Yeah, so we have to look at how that affects that bioswale as well. All our surface water is going to run to that
Yeah, I'm thinking more of like the cavity of the parkade entrance. Like I've seen excellent projects where they've used trellising and vines to buffer the view of that.
So you're not looking down.
Yeah, like it's actually like almost like a roof to it, but not exactly. So that would help mitigate the expansive parking, hard surfacing, etc.
In fact, if you look at the landscape plan, it shows a trellis over the parkade entry, it looks like. Yeah. No, because of the slope of the ramp, that would have to be cranked up somehow, and maybe that isn't possible, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it could be only so wide with, like you say, some vines growing on it, so
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Just, yeah. Okay. I'm
All
trying
right,
to.
so I've kind of added the sentence that I just mentioned
Yes.
roughly, you know. And then the other three, I think we had all mentioned in one way or another. You know, some of the other ones were comments that, you know, maybe are very design specific and we shouldn't include them. But again, if I've missed anything, we would then proceed to sort of frame these around area 3, or pardon me, yeah, development area 3, and find an appropriate clause to reference them.
If I may approach the chair, a friendly number H might cover off what you're, because I think a vehicle, it talks about landscaping, screening service areas, and you could argue that a vehicle parking is kind of a service area, the number 8, number H there.
H under what number, sorry, Blaine? 2?
2, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
We're looking at DTA.
Is it G? Is it, or 8 or no?
It slipped out of my.
It's just on, sorry, it's number 7, 7H, I think it was. Oh,
I did the same
that's
thing.
my bad. Okay, ignore me. I'll go back to what I was doing. I was trying.
Well, I guess there's a 2C, surface area parking, you know, containing landscaping which buffers parking areas from adjacent properties and public spaces. And I think we could extend that to the building in question.
Yeah, because, yeah. Because I think it will benefit the residents of your building to do something over that one zone.
So we could say basically 2G and C. Yeah. So the recommended protection for the entrance. Let's see if we can find that somewhere here.
That's under one.
Yes, yeah. So 1F for that one.
And that's just for the residential entrance?
That's right, yeah. Actually, the canopy for the commercial entrance is part of the eyebrow of the second floor, which seems to provide pretty good protection for that. Accessible parking, additional accessible parking stalls. I should have this memorized after all these years. Really, you know, there's accessible features should be integrated into the overall design concept. I'm not seeing anything specific to the number of stalls, but I think we could add that. Well, we're going to make that recommendation and actually just use this to cover it, I guess.
Yeah, so the number of stalls is more related to like a zoning bylaw requirement,
Right.
but you absolutely could make that recommendation.
As an accessibility feature.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
believe that there's a guideline that's tied to that though.
are mandated, we try to have more, right? Just like in the last project, because I realized that an issue, parking is always an issue, especially when you get to the downtown core area.
Yeah, and this is the first time I've seen like a really accessible housing component on a building such that we needed to really think about the number of stalls, you know. So I think that's an increase in the number of stalls without telling you how many would be. I'm sure you can consider that, and we'll leave it with you that way. And yeah, if we're okay, well, let's go 6A for that one.
Sorry, if you think some of the accessible spaces downstairs, that I always want to get. By the time I get out and into the building myself, if I have groceries, it's much easier than I'm.
I'm looking for something that would reflect the request for more landscaping to soften the elevation of the building from Bagshaw. I assume that it was primarily Bagshaw we were kind of thinking on because that's what the building faces onto.
Yeah, I couldn't find anything specific, but maybe they just heard us. And
That's not how the projects we've done over built it.
Yeah.
I drive around here and I like pointing out stuff.
Yeah.
I was involved in the Cedar Ridge subdivision. My ex-wife built that whole thing. I did Skylark. Drive by those with landscaping strips and stuff. It's different than how I would build it. Go by Calgary, we did fire project on Calgary. Across from the Bayside Inn.
I've been there, but not intentionally looking at your project. So yes.
And the boulders are lit up.
Yes.
Two,
Yes.
2A, 2A would cover that.
Yeah, and 2A.
Yeah. I'm mostly concerned with your residents, just like
Enhance the
on
appearance of the
that whole
project or the
park-
development, right?
The whole park, okay, they're just looking at the, yeah, yeah.
You're right, with a generally enhance the appearance of the development. That would be we're just saying here 2A has a clause at the end that says that the landscaping shall generally enhance the appearance of the development. Perhaps additional landscaping would be a 2A.
Yeah.
If you think that would be appropriate.
Yeah, I'm okay with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they may not be able to. They're very limited.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it may be, you know.
Yeah, I think it's being the general is very best way to
Yeah,
give
yeah.
them the fee, you know, to.
It's a recommendation. We're
yeah,
leaving it all up to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So-
Bagshaw is actually, they has a good landscaping. I think we
Yeah.
more talk about the interior parking area facing to the building.
Mhm.
And maybe softening is the better word also used, and not landscape as
Yeah.
you
Mhm.
suggested, maybe some just color.
Mhm.
Yeah,
just
I think the
softening.
one I written down, I don't know if you took it down as well, but additional plantings to soften building from Bagshaw.
Mhm.
And that should probably be general enough.
Mhm.
That'll leave you some room.
Could I say something?
Yes.
And I think in addition, just the consideration of additional landscaping for a softening effect is not only true from Bagshaw, but also I'm thinking about the residents who live on the other side of the Jensen Greenway, who are now going to be looking at, you know, what could look like a wall of, you know, apartments, basically looking down. So you know, again, if over time there are some additional trees that have some height there, that will also soften the effect for residents who do live on either Evergreen or Bagshaw. So it's
Yeah.
you know, the other side of the
And-
building will benefit from some additional landscaping as well. And I do realize that it does show some trees along there, but I think it's important to think about that.
Yeah, and there is on 2K references shade, so that side that you could use that to ensure that there's adequate shade trees for the south side of the building.
Keeping in mind that
Yeah.
some of that will be off the property of this
Yes.
building and we have no control over that. But,
Yeah.
Anybody have anything else? The next thing we would be looking at doing is making our,
Could you just
sorry?
read them out again?
Yeah. So soften the parking view from this building with surfaces and vegetation. And we had 2 C and G. Weather protect the residential entrance, possibly with a glass canopy at a lower elevation. Additional accessible parking. And then additional plantings to soften the building from Bagshaw. We did mention shading. I mean, what we could do is add 2A and 2G, but I'm not sure that on the Bagshaw side of the building, there's much opportunity to put big trees. There are boulevard trees shown along there. And the south elevation, again, that's fairly tight between the fence and the building. I don't know how you could get a bigger tree there. It's going to have to rely, I think, on the Jensen. Yeah.
We've already had them move as far as they move to the roadside. You'll see this tree that's been moved. So you got to keep that into consideration as well.
That's why I think we want to keep it general, because there's more than meets the eye to making a recommendation like this.
This would be 2A and 2K.
And
Additional plantings to soften the building from Bagshaw and the south elevation.
yes. And the south elevation. And at this point, we usually make a resolution, and you've probably all read these just over and over and over again. But it appears to me that we're looking for type 3, which is that we recommend the DB application be accepted in principle, and we have 4 items of additional information that we've recommended. So any comment there? Are you good with 3? The others are kind of wide open, and the rest of them are almost kind of reflecting. Although we do have, I should actually say it's maybe a 4, because we do have a variance, and we are recommending the variance. Even though we have no jurisdiction over that, we are in agreement, I think. So I'm sorry, it's a 4. Forgot about that for a minute.
And did you want it to come back to the advisor design panel, or for them to just submit to staff and for staff to review?
Exactly. Yeah, that would be type 5, which would be coming back here if it, sorry about that 3, it's definitely a 4. I forgot the variance. So general agreement on that. So we should move that resolution. Could somebody move the resolution?
Sure, Bruce Beaudry.
Okay. Maureen seconded? All right. And I think we're there. Anyway, congratulations. Very nice project. You just didn't give us a lot to, come at you with. It was so nicely done. So thanks, guys. Oh, and then a movement to adjourn the meeting, please. Kate? Anybody who hasn't had a chance? So Bruce, second. And we're out of here.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Have you just signed the minutes?
You're more than welcome to take the plans with you, but I'd ask if you leave the floor plans here.
You know what I want to know, sir? I want to know.
Thank you.
So obvious.